Good day, everyone. This is Blacklogic. So, Amazon plans to cut up to 30,000 corporate jobs, largest layoff in company history, with federal food aid through SNAP set up to dry up November 1st. Recipients say they fear what comes next. GOP-led House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform says many of Joe Biden's pardons signed via Autopen may be void. That means that some people's sentencing may have them back in prison. The fraying of the thin blue line at Chicago Police Department and U.S. Immigration and Custom Enforcement dynamics collide in Chicago because Chicago stating they're no longer going to support ICE agents. Two members of the Illinois National Guard speak out. I won't turn against my neighbor. We'll try to figure out what they're referring to in those regards. Monday evening staffing issue causes major air traffic delays in Newark, Dallas, Austin, as well as Los Angeles. Okay. So again, I'm gonna have these news updates for you guys, and believe me, America just ain't America anymore. So I don't know if you guys are aware that Amazon just announced that it's about to slash up to 30,000 corporate jobs. That's nearly 10% of its 350,000 office workforce. And this is the biggest cut in the company's history. It's a tech giant that seems untouchable. And I think they're like the second largest company in the world of the amount of people that they actually employ, over 1.5 million people around the world, now making real cuts to a large portion of their workforce. And what this means is that for the workforce, for professionals all across the boards in tech, and it's going to have a ripple effect across the economy. And that's really going to break down a lot of these tech jobs, because what we're going to notice here, ladies and gentlemen, is that a lot of people have been losing their jobs. It doesn't matter what field. So we're going to go through this very quickly. Now, as I was stating, that the company also conducted layoffs in 2022 that resulted in 27,000 employees being let go. And Amazon is not by themselves, by the way. Okay. It says that the company plans to lay off around 30,000 staffers across the corporate workforce, and Amazon declined to comment. Of course they have. Monday, more than 200 tech companies have laid off approximately 98,000 employees since the start of the year, according to the site, which monitors job cuts in the tech sector. It says Microsoft has laid off around 15,000 people this year. Meta, also known as Facebook, laid off 600. Google, saying that it eliminated 100 roles. Salesforce, 4,000 people. Okay. And it's pointing to increasing AI adoption as a catalyst behind the cuts. Intel cuts this year has totaled 22,000 layoffs. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're seeing now is that American citizens are being replaced by AI. We're looking at movie industries that they're now making movies that seem to be realistic with AI. We have seen video clips on TikTok and Instagram that they're making these lifelike video clips, even on a lot of people's channel. We've seen AI do all these amazing things that people are utilizing for, and slowly but surely, a lot of the corporations, they're now using it to replace people. Absolutely. This a lot of these jobs that's going away are not the people who are creating the code for AI, but they're going to be hit next, by the way, because AI can create code for AI. If you guys play around with Claude AI or Gemini or Perplexity or ChatGPT or Copilot, a lot of these large language models can absolutely create code to regenerate themselves, to have them to be more advanced and technologically savvy within their own platforms. This is how powerful AI is. And we have been the catalyst, because we're the ones who are trying to come up. And again, I'm guilty. When a lot of these AI models came out, they were asking for people to create prompts. And I've actually got into it because I wanted to learn this new age of technology, because we missed out on Bitcoin. I want to point this out. If you guys would have invested $100 in Bitcoin in 2011, till this day, that Bitcoin would have been worth around $5 to $7 million. I want you guys to really think about that. If you would have invested just $100 back in 2011 in Bitcoin, today it would have been worth around between $5 to $7 million. So that is why I kind of jumped on board. But what's going on now, it doesn't matter what industry. People in tech are being laid off, not just your administrators, your managers, but coders, people who write software, your binary code, all the, the zeros and ones. Everybody from the top down, not really the top, not the C-suite. They're usually safe unless some of the people on the board of directors, the investors, don't like the C-suite. But other than that, they're pretty much safe because they're the ones who are making all the moves. They're slowly but surely getting managers to cut people. And at first, like, you know what? Our industry is going through a reduction in force. So let's get rid of the fat. Let's get rid of the ways. Let's get people who are problem childs. Let's get rid of low performers. But now they're just getting rid of anybody. You're making six figures and we can replace your job, your workflow with AI. That's what we're going to do. And you see it all across the board. You see it in tech. You see it in healthcare. You see it in the movie industry. You're seeing it even in social media. Ladies and gentlemen, we're being slowly wiped away. And here's the thing. We got the problem. What is the only way that we can probably fix this? Now, this is, in my opinion, I'm not for big government, but I'm not for small government either. But this is when the government really should come into play and say, you know what, in order to operate in America, there's just some jobs where we're not going to leave to AI. Because we're going to have all these hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, who are going to be unemployed because AI has taken over. Now, granted, there's a lot of blue collar jobs that you guys, and I know people who are in their 50s and 60s that are still in the workforce, still have bills. They may not want to do these blue collar jobs where they've been a plumber, or electrician, a welder, underwater welder, or oiler, whatever it may be. That's kind of out of their wheelhouse when it comes to their physical capabilities. Now, for young people, yeah, you can jump inside of these trades. And I will encourage a lot of people to do so. Again, in this very technological age that we live in, I believe you need to have some sort of technological skills where you've been an engineer, a tech guru, but also have a sort of blue collar trade that you can fall back on. Because again, this is not conjecture. This is not rhetoric. We are being replaced by AI. And it's because of a lot of these large corporations that see the benefit. Now, here's one last question I have regarding in this. If we have all of these people laid off, hundreds of thousands of Americans all across the nation are laid off, how are we going to pay for the products and services of these corporations that actually replace the people with AI? How are they going to pay for it? That's going to be the big problem. That's what they're going to start to see, where people are going to lapse on their bills. People are going to cancel their membership. People are not going to be willing to pay. They're just going to be in debt. It doesn't matter if you're in debt or not, because you simply can't pay it. Oh, well, then they have to send it to, what happens when you can't pay your bills? They send it to another bank account. It goes into relapse. You have to pay another corporation because they sold your account just so they can get some, a couple of $100 or $1,000 from the top. But again, a lot of people are going to be heavily in debt behind this. And it's because a lot of these corporations are looking at the bottom line and the bottom line only. They're only looking at profit, profit, profit. And I get it. We keep saying that we live in this capitalist society, but you're going to slowly see that America is more socialist than what you think. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I believe that we had a good balance. But now capitalism is spurging. And I just wonder, all these people losing their job, what are they going to do? Because they go from one tech company, I'm leaving Amazon. I was a coder in Amazon. Now I'm trying to go to Facebook. Well, Facebook just laid off 22,000 people. Well, now I want to go to Salesforce. Salesforce has laid off 4,000 people. Now I'm going to go here and I'm going to go there. Ladies and gentlemen, it's slowly been struck. Okay. Now I want to give you guys a resource when it comes to layoffs. And this is just an example of layoffs.fyi that you guys can go to, whether it be federal government layoffs, tech layoffs, They had all this information depending on the industry that you actually are in. And you can look at that as well. Another good resource is the layoff.com. And take for instance, they have a company index, or you can pretty much search for your corporation, or you can kind of just look down here, the active forums, and it will tell you all these different, jobs that they're essentially going to be laid off. Let's look, for instance, JCPenney. Let's look at JCPenney very quickly. It gives you all the company information, the stock trade, okay, and then it gives you a lot of the top stories. Let's see here. Any word on falling timbers? JC been on the store closing list. My mother works, blah, blah, blah. All these different news stories for you guys to dive into, okay? Again, these are the hot topics right here. Let's go to Microsoft. We spoke about Microsoft earlier, okay? Let's see here. All the layoffs paid off. Quality appears to be suffering. Non-production level code is shipping. Let's see what else. We need more of this. Microsoft video game developers launch local studio after layoffs, former developers, a massive popular online game. So again, they're kind of all these related stories of people who have been laid off, or insider stories, or even some legacy news media are posting stories here of certain industries and certain organizations that are laying off people. So again, this could be a resource if you guys thinking that it's going to be a reduction in force at your organization or job. You might want to check out layoffs.fyi as well as the layoff.com. Okay. I just want to give you guys that resource. Now, when it comes to SNAP being ended on November 1st, we have Americans that depend on SNAP program. I mean, we're talking about over 42, 43 million Americans. And this government shutdown threatened those benefits. And people are saying this isn't just numbers, it's families, it's skipping meals, kids going without. And the system here, the dimensions of it, they will like to believe that this is black and brown. Now, yesterday's new broadcast, I showed you that there's millions of white Americans. There's very few Asian Americans, but majority of white, black, and Hispanic Americans are the ones who are going to be mainly affected. So again, this is going to reach majority of communities in America, not just the ones that people would like to exploit on TV. It goes on to state here that roughly 42 million Americans rely on food stamps that arrive early month on their electronic benefit transfer cards. November 1st, that aid is set to abruptly stop amid the ongoing U.S. government shutdown, potentially leaving a lot of households scrambling to figure out to put food on the table. People enrolled in the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, told CBS News that they're bracing for some tough financial choices. Casey McBlaze, a 42-year-old single mom who lives in Buckfield, Maine, says she's planning to delay paying her electric and credit card bills to make sure her two children have enough to eat. This is the America that we live in now. I know a lot of people are going to state that we're still in better shape than if Kamala Harris would have been president. I don't know. Now, I do believe that if Kamala Harris would have won, America would have become more socialist than it already is, and that wouldn't have been a good thing. But now that President Trump is in office, we're now more conservative. I don't know what we are right now. I don't know if it's slowly turning to authoritarianism, which there's a lot of indicators that it is, and we're moving so far right. For quite some time, there have always been a good balance of back and forth between the views of the Democrats and the views of Republicans. And it came to a point where America was never really satisfied with any administration, but there was some regulatory things that America is like, America's good. It's not great, but it's good. What are we thinking now? I want to know the beat of the people. Leave it in the comment section below. If you're new to Blacklogic, hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know every time I release a video and or go live, because I just want to know the beat, the vibe, the energy of the people, because I don't want you to tell me you're a Republican. Don't tell me you're a Democrat. I want you untetheredly, untamed your thoughts from your political affiliation. Can we do that? Can you be neutral to think, how is America doing now that we know that millions of people losing their job, millions of people are going hungry, maybe going hungry November 1st, let alone Thanksgiving is coming in 3 or 4 weeks. I just want to know, what are you Americans being affected? Are the ones who are watching this broadcast being affected? Or you may be affected? Or are you guys entrepreneurs making millions of dollars, more money that you can absolutely dream of? Or are you on the chopping block at your job and you probably don't even know it, that you're maybe going through a rift here pretty soon because of AI? Are yourself or family members depending on SNAP and other social benefits that the federal government provides, and it may be cut off November 1st? Just let me know. I'm very curious to really know what the people are thinking right now. So I know you guys have been hearing this because the report claims that the executive actions that President Biden, especially his pardons, may lack legitimacy because there was signed via Autopen without clear direct involvement of the president himself. And that puts the core of executive legitimacy into question. Who's really pulling the trigger? It has serious implications for justice, transparency, and accountability. And now they may say that, hey, listen, anything that President Biden have done with the Autopen may be voided. I want to get into this very quickly. I want to show you guys what CNN has written here, because they're going full. Former President Joe Biden experienced such cognitive decline while in office there remains a serious question as to whether he was aware of the substance of the various pardons and commutations signed in his name via Autopen. And the GOP-controlled House Oversight Committee asserted in a letter it sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, urging her to consider whether the clemency might be invalid and to take action for potential prosecution against some of Biden's aides. So some people allegedly may be going back to prison, maybe going back to jail, because the GOP and the Oversight Committee is saying, you know what? According to our investigation, he was in cognitive decline. He couldn't have made these decisions with a clear mind and sound body. He just couldn't do it. That's what they're alluding to. It goes on to say that the committee deems void President Biden's executive actions that were signed using the Autopen, and the committee determines that the action by the Department of Justice is warranted to address the legal consequences of that determination. It wrote to Bondi in the letter released Tuesday morning that the letter was made public alongside a 93-page report outlining the committee's conclusion from its month-long investigation into Biden's use of the Autopen. It alleged the committee had found a cover-up of the president's cognitive decline and no record demonstrating President Biden himself made all of the executive decisions that were attributed to him. Biden has publicly disputed that, saying he made all decisions as president and calling Republicans who have suggested otherwise liars. Now, all of that can be true. That's the problem with politics, ladies and gentlemen. It's a nasty, dirty, evil game. All of that can be true. He could have been in his right mind. The Republican could have been lying. He could have been in a cognitive decline. All at the same time, because people with dementia, they go through, and I'm not stating President Biden had dementia or has dementia, by the way. This for legal reasons. But people who have dementia, there are times of clarity where they recall and understand every single thing they're doing. He could have absolutely gave authority to people using Autopen to commute and to pardon people under his administration. He could have had this so transparency and clarity. There was no cognitive decline during this period of dementia. But yet, he could have still been in the state of dementia. Does that make any sense? Let me clear it up. There's parts in time where people have dementia, and within the state of having dementia, there are phases where they have clarity, they don't have brain fog, they can recall and remember everything, they understand every circumstance, everything that's going on within those phases. But they're still in the state of dementia because they are having a cognitive decline. So again, all of this can be true, or all of these are just lies. Now, personally, we saw President Biden in his, last 2 years or so in the court of public opinion. I will allude that it looks like he was, had some sort of cognitive decline. That's just the way that we view things. He had a lot of lapse in a lot of these news reports right there in the White House, where he was either stuttering or just stood still. Like, what's the Republican guy that wear the glasses and he just stood at the podium like this? Mitch McConnell. That was his name. Mitch McConnell came to the podium. I think it was twice he did this, where he was speaking and just stopped. And then there were some people who had to guide him off the stage. Biden had some moments like that as well. So again, we're going to see how that turns out. I'm going to keep you guys updated with that as well. Now, in Chicago, what's going on? We have a sort of a dual policing, because city police under extreme pressure that ICE operations overlapping, and the community trust when it comes to the surrounding area of ICE as well as Chicago PD. Again, the relationship is eroding right before our eyes. This is more than headlines. It's lived experiences of what a lot of Chicagoans, ICE agents, as well as Chicago PD. There's a thin blue line now. We'll examine who's holding the line and who's being left behind, because if we go into what's going on right now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to read just a little bit here to the best of my ability. It says, shocking revelations from earlier this month out of Chicago should joy every American out of complacency when it comes to public safety. Commander in the Chicago Police Department ordered officers not to respond to calls for help from federal law enforcement agents who were under duress, surrounded by vehicles, and under threat. That is lunacy. That is absolutely wild, in my opinion. First and foremost, before these people are law enforcement agents, they're people. And if they are in duress, if they're in fear of their life, then they should be rendered help and support, let alone their federal agents, okay? Let alone. But I think Chicago is trying to prove a point, just as well as this government shutdown. The Republicans are trying to prove a point. The Democrats are trying to prove a point. And again, people are being harmed. That's the issue. It goes on to state that this should not be dismissed as just as Chicago, it should not be dismissed as just a Chicago problem. It is a real present warning sign for all of us of how deeply fractured our policing institutions have become. What happened in Chicago is not an isolated incident. Rather, it represents the next inflection point and a precipitous decline in law enforcement that has been gathered steam since the defund the police movement. Across the country, police departments are struggling with ballooning response times, with jurisdictions reporting that they have dubbed the time it takes to react to 911 calls. What we are seeing is a rapidly developing erosion of the thin blue line. What's going on in America? Now, just because it hasn't hit home for you guys just yet, it hasn't hit a town, a state, a city, a suburb near you, that doesn't mean that it won't come and affect you. It may affect you at the mall, at the grocery store. Grocery prices have risen 5.2%. I want you guys to really understand the environment that we're living in. Inflation is at an all-time high. Grocery prices rose 5.2% last month. Unemployment is going to be at an all-time high because all the massive layoffs. People sentencing could be commuted, and the pardons that the president gave them, they may be right back in jail. Even though President Trump is pardoning people as we speak. Don't forget, he pardoned the Binance CEO because the federal government got paid $4 billion. But again, there's a lot going on, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you see the eroding of the thin blue line between Chicago PD by the orders of one of the top execs there, between law enforcement agents and ICE. And if you guys don't believe that America is slowly imploding and all of these things are happening all at one time, then you guys are really not paying attention. And I'm not telling anyone to be fearful, but again, if we the people have the power, then why aren't we saying anything? Why aren't we doing anything? And I hate to tell you this once again, because I know you guys are very intelligent. We the people don't have power once we vote people into office because we don't live in a democracy. Even though they tell you that this is the democracy, the Constitution doesn't say anything about democracy. It says everything about being a republic, that you have representatives that once you vote them into office, they make all the other decisions for you. It's kind of like having children. You make all the decisions for them. You may give them a little input. You're like, but mom, but dad, can I? No, you can't. That's where we are. We're children of politicians. Because listen, we voted them into office, and now we have to march, protest, lobby, send letters to our congressmen and women, and they just go, no, we're going to do something different. Just like parents. I don't know how you feel, but that's what it feels like to me. Now, when National Guard members publicly declare they won't enforce certain orders, you know we're at a tipping point in community-state relations. And this matters for democracy, as people will state. Again, I just explained that. But basically for civil order and for how we view service and loyalty in neighborhoods that are long underserved. And I want to guys just show you how new legacy news media plays a game with the American people as well. Now, it states here that 2 National Guard members told CBS News they will refuse to obey federal orders to deploy in Chicago as part of President Trump's controversial immigration enforcement mission, a rare act of open defiance from within the military ranks. It goes on to state that is it heartening to be forced to go against your community members and your neighbors, said Staff Sergeant Demi Palak, a Latina guardswoman and state legislative candidate from Illinois. Pause right there. Why did they tell us that she was Latina? Why did they tell us she was Hispanic? Why did they do that? Why did the news media tell us her ethnic? Why would they do such a thing? Why would they point that out? Let me show you the contrast here. Captain Dylan Blaha, who is running for Congress in the same district, described growing unease among Guard members after White House federalized 500 troops. Wait a minute. What ethnic and or race is Dylan Blaha? Now, B-L-A-H-A, if you look that name up, believe it or not, that name's come from the Slavic people. It's an Eastern European last name. So I would like to believe that this captain is a white man. Okay. Unless, his parents married into a Hispanic family and they both Hispanic, but that name derives from the Slavic people. And I would like to believe that he's a white man. Now we can, let's do this. Let's just look it up because I'm curious, and I'm pretty sure you guys are curious. Why do they point out someone from Hispanic origin? Let's see, Chicago. There we go. Let's look up who this guy is. Let's see if we can find an image. Yep, looks like a white man to me. Looks like a white man to me. Then why didn't they point that out? You see how the media toys with people? You see how they incite and infuriate? And in some regards, in my opinion, they radicalize people. They're like, them damn Hispanics just want to keep illegals and they should deport her too. And that's what people be saying. They should deport her too. But when you get down to Dylan, he supported it as well. He's like, nope, I'm not deploying either. I'm with her. Oh, well, they're married. They must be dating. That's what people would allude to. But again, it's amazing to me. They call her a Latina guardswoman, but didn't call him a white God's man. The system of white supremacy. You got to love it, ladies and gentlemen. You got to love it. Now, it points to deeper issues when we're referring to this story when it comes to the great decline of Joe Biden. Because, again, they're trying to basically undo every single thing that Joe Biden has done in office. Now, granted, some of the things when it comes to immigration, yeah, they should overturn a lot of those things. But there are some things that Joe Biden done in office that they shouldn't try to overturn, that he uses Autopen. Nothing comes to mind, so I won't stay here long. Now, granted, when we think about essential staffing, we think about air traffic controllers, by the way. We're thinking about the very infrastructure of American transportation. And right now, a lot of Americans are experiencing operational fatigue when major hubs like Newark, Dallas, LA, Austin, when we look at the grind down, the ripple touches businesses. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. If you're operating in America, it's been a very trying time to travel during these conditions, especially that is stemming from the governmental shutdown. But a lot of working class folks are being affected by this because you're the ones who are being delayed because there is a lack of staffing at a lot of these airports. A lot of these major airports, I've heard there's delays at Atlanta because of weather and shortage of staffing, DFW, Austin, Newark, LaGuardia, LAX, all these different airports are having issues because of lack of personnel due to the government shutdown. I did want to make you guys familiar with this site, and I know this is very popular by now, called Flight Aware. And you guys can type in your flight numbers. You can track traffic. You can track your flight to see if it's going to arrive on time. They have a lot of intuitive functions with this website. So if you guys not familiar with Flight Aware and you're about to travel here pretty soon, it would be, it would be beneficial for you guys to really download the Flight Aware app or use the website to see if your flight is going to be delayed due to the government shutdown, because a lot of air traffic controllers come this net paycheck around November 1st will not be getting paid. So I want you guys to think about that. If you're not going to get paid, why would you continue to show up to work and you have to feed your family? That means that you may have to pick up some of these jobs that a lot of people are now, doing, like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Uber. Would it be, all of these jobs that people are delivering certain things, Amazon Flex, things of that nature, because again, I couldn't imagine losing your job or not being paid, but still have your job and expect it to come in, because it's kind of threatening in a way. I want you guys to think about what I'm about to state. It's kind of threatening because you are an essential worker. You're still required to come in. And if you looked at one of my broadcasts roughly about 2 weeks ago, I spoke about that President Trump was stating that a lot of these people who are essential workers are not going to receive back pay. Then there's been a lot of people who have been furloughed. They're not going to receive back pay. So you mean to tell me that there's some people, not all, they have to come into work, and if they don't come into work, they're going to lose their job when the government is funded again, number one, and they're not going to be back paid. Then those who are furloughed, okay, they're sent home. And I can understand being furloughed, you're not going to be back paid because you're not being at work. But those essential workers like air traffic controllers, TSA agents, you mean to tell me you're not going to pay them? You're not going to at least back pay them? So if you're going in debt on your credit card, right? This I was speaking about earlier about collection agencies where your account becomes delinquent and it goes into collections, and then they sell your account to another collection agency, and they sell your account to another collection agency. How do I know this? Because I went to it. I went through it myself. That's why I learned about finances. That's why at one point in time, this channel was called Ross World, where I taught financial literacy. It used to be called Financial Literacy 101 to teach people about finance. And this is what they do to people. These tough times, these rough times are great for debt collectors. Do not forget, back in 1971, Nixon changed the foundation of the American currency from gold and silver to fiat, meaning debt. So we can have a revolving debt, which helped make America one of the most powerful and richest countries in the world, is because we're not backed by any mineral or metal. We're backed by owing someone. And if you don't pay people their money, you have to go into bankruptcy, and they take your house, they take your car, they take everything. And again, they would say, well, you did it to yourself. Or did the economy do it? Inquiring minds want to know.